The following information is from a naturopathic point of view. All information and views are intended for educational and informational purposes and do not replace the advice or care from your healthcare team. This is Tea Time with Dr. Danni, conversations for navigating holistic medicine and wellness. With your host, Dr. Danni, we provide a fun and insightful look at health and wellness with clear and concise information, helping you to make educated and empowered decisions about your healthcare options and your health. Now, here's your host, Dr. Danielle McDuff.
Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to our regular Tea Timers. And if this is your first time here, we're so glad to have you with us. This is Season 1, Episode 9 of Tea Time with Dr. Danni. I'm your host, Dr. Danni. Grab your favorite cup of brew and join us in the parlor as we continue our series on curating your health and wellness team with our guest, Dr. Salvatore Di Liello, board-certified naturopathic doctor with a homeopathic concentration. In this episode, we are discussing all things homeopathic and its role in collaborative care.
Today's episode is sponsored by the upcoming Collaborative Care Retreat hosted by Dr. Harriet Lemberger-Schor and myself on August 17th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 755 Boardman, Canfield Road, Suite C2, bottom floor. The classroom, in collaboration with Dr. Harriet Lemberger-Schor, is proud to present Introduction to Collaborative Medicine. This retreat coincides with the kickoff of our 100-day challenge and will introduce you to the different aspects of collaborative care with breakout sessions on lifestyle medicine and vision setting, naturopathic medicine and nutrition, emotional healing and rebalance, and the transcendence therapy, followed by activities and a cooking demo. A light breakfast will be provided, as well as lunch following the cooking demonstration. The 100-day challenge will kick off that day as well. During the challenge, Dr. Danni and Dr. Schor will coach you through jump-starting the next phase of your wellness journey with 30 days of cleansing, 30 days of building, 30 days of healing, and 10 days of maintenance with one-on-one support and group challenges packed full of tips and tools to support your success. The cost for this retreat is just $65. Registration is now open, but seating is limited. Registration closes on August 12th, so call 330-758-9567 or text COLLAB to 234-308-8289 or go to www.drdanninaturopath.com/collab retreat to reserve your spot today. You can save $50 when you register for the retreat and the challenge by June 28th.
Did you know homeopathy is the second most used branch of alternative medicine? This branch of healing began more than 200 years ago and uses the principle of like treats like to assist the body in correcting imbalances and healing. In today's show, we're going to explore the history and misconceptions of homeopathic medicine, as well as learn some of the exciting uses of homeopathy in collaborative care. Dr. Salvatore Di Liello is a board-certified naturopathic doctor with a concentration in homeopathic medicine. He is also a board-certified member of the American Association of Drugless Practitioners and a Level 2 certified addiction recovery nutrition coach, focusing on wellness and prevention with the goal of educating and empowering clients so they can make better choices and ultimately achieve their optimized state. Dr. Sal, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us here in the parlor today and continue this discussion with potential practitioners for our health and wellness team.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Danni, for inviting me again to your series of podcasts. I know we did something like this a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it, so I want to thank you for having me back on your show.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I can't believe that's been 10 years ago already.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Oh,
2015 was when I was doing it. Yeah,
wow.
Crazy.
Time flies when you have fun.
It is, yeah. I've started out each show by asking the guest to share his or her story with us. How exactly you got interested in homeopathy and what ultimately got you into the field?
Sure, I'll be glad to. My story is probably a little bit unique because, as you can see, this accent is not from Ohio. I was born and raised in Italy. And of course, in most of the European country, homeopathic medicine, holistic medicine, alternative medicine, as it is now addressed here, it's one of the what I would say more of a mainstream, at least it was even 34 years ago. So it is not uncommon to walk into any pharmacy all over Europe and ask for an homeopathic remedy, and they'll just open up the drawers and provide you what you're looking for. They're all in Latin names, so it doesn't matter if you don't speak the country language, you can still walk out of there with the right remedy. So because I was brought up with that and I was not a stranger to that kind of medicine, I wanted to continue that on, not only for myself, but hopefully to have other people find the same benefits that I did over my years.
So how did you end up here?
Well, I don't know if we have that much of time to talk about it, but basically, to make a long story short, the whole family decided to move over here. We had family here, my father's sister, my aunt, and she encouraged the whole family to come over here for a better opportunity for us, the children, and so here we are, and I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. And so how long have you been in the States?
Oh, I've been in the States for over 40 years now, and it's been, just like we were talking before on the last time on the podcast, it seems like yesterday, but I still continue to go back and forth to visit family, and I'm still studying homeopathy with Dr. Massimo Mangialavori, who's an Italian medical doctor that I have trained and continue to train under him for the past 20 plus years.
Wow. Okay, so you've been in the U.S. for 40 years. Have you been into homeopathy that entire time, or how long have you been in this field?
Not in a formal way.
Okay.
Let's say that if I needed an homeopathic remedy, I would probably, those 5 or 6 that I used to use all the time, like arnica or hypericum, I wouldn't know where to find them or get them. But then what happened after I took my first course formally of homeopathic medicine as part of the curriculum for naturopathic doctor, I sort of really fell in love with it more because it is one of those branch of holistic medicines that it really, you either love it or hate it, because it's unlike herbology, nutraceuticals or nutritions or anything else. It's something that at first doesn't make sense how you can get a mother tinctures and triturate it, and the more you dilute it, the more potent it gets. But then when you start seeing the energy that it carries, and homeopathy is really an energy medicine kind of a field of modality. So when you start seeing that, you get one of those aha moments and you realize, this really works. And there is a reason, as you mentioned, why so many people have used it and continue to use it throughout the world.
Okay. So how long have you been a homeopathic practitioner?
So I've been practicing for almost 20 years now.
Okay. A hot minute there.
A hot minute, yes.
Yeah. All right. So for the folks who are not familiar with homeopathy, or maybe just have a little bit of an idea about it but don't really know much about it, can you explain, just give us a little bit of background on the discipline and kind of share why someone might choose homeopathy as an addition to their healthcare?
So that's a good question, and it's probably the questions that if we really want to go deep, I could speak for about 2 hours. So I'll make it short and sweet. Why would anyone use it? Well, you would use it because when you use homeopathy, you are really addressing the 3 different aspects, what I call it, of a stool. Like a 3-legged stool, for example, you're addressing the body, the mind, the emotion, the spirit. So if you were to look, for example, at an homeopathic remedy for headache, and you will go to the reference like the Materia Medica, you would probably see more than 100 plus headaches remedy. But what makes it homeopathy really interesting is that we will customize for your particular headache. So if somebody comes in, if I see 3 people with headaches, everyone might have a different headache. It might be more towards the head, the front. It feels like somebody is playing a drum in my head, or it feels like I have a tight band around my head. So each one of those particular means something for an homeopath. And of course, the more detail we have, the more we start seeing the complete picture of what your headache looks like. And from there, we can determine your remedy for your headache.
Okay, so we're not just talking about we're treating a headache, we're talking about kind of getting more to the cause.
To the root cause, yes.
Yeah.
Which,
Okay.
in essence, that's what holistic medicine really addresses. It's not trying to treat the symptoms like a headache or a bellyache, but we're trying to go to the root cause. And sometimes, the root cause could be something emotional, could be a trauma, could be all kinds of things. That's why when you go to an homeopath, expect that he or she will ask all sorts of questions that probably other doctors have never asked or addressed.
Okay, so that's a huge difference between how allopathic medicine works with pharmaceuticals versus, looking at a homeopathic remedy.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So I can tell that you could talk exhaustively about this subject, which is great. It's great. I love getting people in here with a passion for something who really love the subject that they're into. And clearly this is a super complex field. What would be some things that you would share with someone to just give them a basic overview of homeopathy?
You are right, Dr. Danni. These are very complex. And yes, I tend to be a little more passionate about the subject than the average naturopath, probably, because, like I say, I've seen some really great results, not only personally or with our clients, but even with animals and plants, which sort of puts away the placebo effect that we often hear other people that are not very familiar with homeopathic medicine. But some of the things that I would recommend is, if anything, just get a basic book if you're interested, sort of like your first aid for homeopathy or for new moms. In homeopathy for babies and infants. There is all sorts of good material out there written by a lot of great professional doctors, that most of them are even medical doctors, because at the turn of the century here in the States, in order to practice homeopathy, you had to be a medical doctor. So, and then they sort of went different routes. So there is a lot of validity, there is a lot of good results that we have seen. And really, I can't emphasize enough, just do a little bit of research and look for some of these books. And they often read in plain language, English, so you can understand. You don't need a PhD to decipher what they were trying to say, especially at the basic level. Of course, there are books that get more involved in the constitutional remedies, and that's when it gets more complex. And then I would recommend it to talk to a professional for that.
Okay, perfect. So you mentioned that the turn of the century, and because we are where we are in history, we have to clarify the turn of which century?
You're right. I should have been a little bit more specific, because this is not the current century, it was the previous century, the 20th century. Yes.
Okay.
Right about the 1900s, that's when we start seeing the shift.
Yeah, and that we kind of started seeing the shift from natural medicine into allopathic medicine at that point as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Good bit of history there. So you touched there on the idea of the placebo effect and the kind of misconception that's something that's associated with homeopathy. What are some other really common misconceptions within homeopathy? I can think of one in particular, but I want to get your take on it first.
Well, see, I was going to go ahead and ask you your first, but I'll go ahead and go first here. So one of the main misconception is we see these little vials with different numbers, usually 6, 12, 30. And of course, the higher the number, the higher the potency. And people often will say, well, if I take 3 of these pellets and it's really taking away my headache and now I'm feeling a little bit better, maybe I just save a slight headache. It went from a scale of 0 to 10, from a 10 scale to a 3 scale. Maybe if I take 3 more or 6 more, it will really finish up the job. And one of the things that I always caution everyone is that homeopathy, we like to say less is more. So don't overdo it. And that's one of the things that it's usually taken as a mistake, or sometimes they're all trying to get too many remedies and put it all together and make a cocktail of remedies. And I'm not a big fan of that. There are some formula that come already pre-made, pre-mixed as multiple remedies, but at the same time we want to be sure that we don't take it upon ourselves just to create our own cocktails, because like anything else, there could be some interference and some interactions where one remedy may negate the power of the other ones.
That's a great point.
Now I want to hear your point.
So the biggest one that I see is that people not confuse. There's an assumption that homeopathy is synonymous with naturopathy, and we are in fact two different disciplines.
Right.
So you are a naturopath,
right,
but your concentration is in homeopathy. So explain to people what that means as far as like the education that you went through to get to that point.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So basically, after doing the requirements for naturopathic curriculum that encompassed 3 or 4 different courses of homeopathy, I went on my own and started researching homeopathic school that offered just homeopathy, and did that for several years, going to the Boston area with Dr. Mangialavori and the New England Homeopathic Associations that also had homeopaths, medical doctors, osteopaths, chiropractors, all wanted to learn more about homeopathy, specifically the school or the branch of homeopathy that Dr. Massimo Mangialavori teaches and uses in his own practice.
Okay. I liken that to, if people think about a brain surgeon, right. That brain surgeon has to go to school to become a doctor first, and then they have to go take additional education to get into that specific field. And homeopathy has that same kind of need for education and training.
Right. That's correct. That's a good analogy, because then you really get more specific into the nitty-gritty of homeopathy. Mm-hmm. The first couple of courses are great, and those are things that the average person can even go online and take some courses. If you start having, muscle problems, or you work out too much, and you say, oh, okay, arnica will probably do the job for me, and that's great, from a physiological aspect. But then if you wanted to get deeper into what is going on into your body, into your mind, and address the whole system, then you need to be more specific, of course.
Yeah, fantastic. I have to take a quick break, but when we come back, Dr. Sal and I are going to dive into decoding homeopathic formulations and homeopathy's contribution to some new approaches to addiction treatment and recovery. So grab your favorite cup of brew and meet me back here in the parlor. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Tea Time with Dr. Danni, conversations for navigating holistic medicine and wellness. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Today's episode is sponsored by the upcoming Collaborative Care Retreat hosted by Dr. Harriet Lemberger-Schor and myself on August 17th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 755 Boardman, Canfield Road, Suite C2, bottom floor. The classroom, in collaboration with Dr. Harriet Lemberger-Schor, is proud to present Introduction to Collaborative Medicine. This retreat coincides with the kickoff of our 100-day challenge and will introduce you to the different aspects of collaborative care with breakout sessions on lifestyle medicine and vision setting, naturopathic medicine and nutrition, emotional healing and rebalance, and the transcendence therapy, followed by activities and a cooking demo. A light breakfast will be provided, as well as lunch following the cooking demonstration. The 100-day challenge will kick off that day as well. During the challenge, Dr. Danni and Dr. Schor will coach you through jump-starting the next phase of your wellness journey with 30 days of cleansing, 30 days of building, 30 days of healing, and 10 days of maintenance with one-on-one support and group challenges packed full of tips and tools to support your success. The cost for this retreat is just $65. Registration is now open, but seating is limited. Registration closes on August 12th, so call 330-758-9567 or text COLLAB to 234-308-8289 or go to www.drdanninaturopath.com/COLLAB retreat to reserve your spot today. You can save $50 when you register for the retreat and the challenge by June 28th. Are you in or near the Youngstown, Ohio area? Do you want to learn more about herbal medicine and how to make them? Then check out Dr. Danni's Deep Dive Herbology series in 2025. Deep Dive Stevia takes place on July 17th and 24th, 2025 at the classroom located at 755 Boardman, Canfield Road, Suite C2, bottom floor. This 2-day immersive class dives deep into the uses, properties, and ways to prepare every part of this multifunctional plant. You'll learn the benefits of each part of stevia, receive hands-on activities for you to do at home, enjoy interactive classroom activities, and receive recipes and activities to continue exploring the wonders of the stevia plant. Just $90 covers both days and class supplies. Registration ends July 11th, 2025, so call today to reserve your spot. Call 330-758-9567 or text STEVIA to 234-308-8289 or check the show notes for registration information. For up-to-date workshop and appearance information, go to www.drdannynaturopath.com/events. Are you experiencing bloat, constipation, digestive sensitivities to certain foods, or irritable bowel symptoms? Are you looking for a natural approach to healing? Dr. Danni can help. As a board-certified naturopathic doctor, her client-centered approach will help you discover the underlying contributors to your symptoms, learn how to better support your body, and provide you with resources to help you speed your healing. Schedule an assessment or ask for the free 10-minute Can You Help Me consult to find out how Dr. Danni can help you today. Call 330-758-9567 or go to www.musslerchiro.com to schedule today. You're listening to Tea Time with Dr. Danni. This show was previously recorded. You can reach the show at drdanninaturopath@gmail.com. That's DRDANNI naturopath@gmail.com, or find the link in the show notes below. Now back to tea time. Here's Dr. Danni.
Welcome back to all you tea timers. Before the break, Dr. Sal shared his story with us and cleared up some misconceptions about homeopathy, as well as talking to us about what homeopathy is and how it's used. Dr. Sal, earlier you were talking about homeopathic remedies and the formulations in particular. And I've personally had clients in my office who have been sold these products that are formulated with just a huge laundry list of different remedies, sometimes the same remedy in multiple potencies and multiple remedies in multiple potencies with very negative effects. So what are your thoughts on those products and how they're being used?
I would tell you, as I mentioned before, that less is more. So try to do more with more remedies and more potency. Often is not beneficial. And as you have seen, and we've seen it other times as well, it could result in some negative effects. So my personal belief will be, before you really start getting into this too much, talk to a professional, talk to someone who's an homeopath or a professional counselor, or someone that has been doing homeopathy for a while and really knows the nuts and bolts of it, because otherwise you could end up with not having the effect that you are looking for. Most of them, under normal circumstances, are safe, but again, you have to know the level of safety, and you have to know how many remedies you can take at once, how many times, how many potency, how much of a potency. So all those things play an effect, and that's what makes homeopathy perhaps a little more complicated than, let's say, herbology, where you get a tincture or you get a pills or ashwagandha or rhodiola, and you follow the directions and you say, okay, take 2 of these a day. In this particular case, there are other things that play into effect. We utilize the materia medica to give us a better idea of what these remedies do and how they should be used. Another great book is, of course, from the father of homeopathic medicine, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. He was a German physician, and he wrote the Organon. So if you're really interested in doing more with homeopathy, I would definitely look into the Organon by Samuel Hahnemann and see exactly how these remedies work, how they get effect, how they may be contraindicated, what you can expect when you take some of these remedy from the symptoms to show up, to come up to the surface, and sometimes a little aggravation is part of a healing crisis. So you also must be able to recognize that rather than I'm getting worse and it's not working.
Great point. And you mentioned there, it was really important to work with someone who understands, right? So how does the average person who knows nothing about homeopathy determine whether or not they're working with someone who really knows what they're doing? The sad thing about a lot of these formulations is that they are being distributed by naturopathic physicians. And so, we've got people who ought to be trusted, but don't really have the background that they need to fully understand what's going on. And they're simply selling a product that they've been instructed to sell, or educated in the marketing of selling that product, I guess is a better way to put it. So can you talk just a little bit about what might be some questions that folks could ask to determine whether or not they're working with someone who really understands homeopathy?
No, that's a good, valid question. And like anything else, I would always encourage the client to do some research, maybe take a look at credentials, take a look at who they have studied under, making sure that what they're getting, it's not a generic formula, that it's been put on the shelf and they're just reselling it. So like anything else, I think the more educated you are about any subject, the better you can determine your outcome.
Yeah. And that's the point of all of these shows, is to give everybody the information to kind of help them go forward on this journey and meet that goal that you talked about in your bio. I think for me, one of the things that was really important to me when I got into this was really understanding what everything did. And I think something that I would recommend to folks is to ask that practitioner, why are you recommending this particular remedy, or why are you recommending this particular product for me? Yeah. And I like what you said about making sure it's not just an off-the-shelf thing, because I think that is a lot of what's going on, particularly when we see these like multifaceted formulations that are just insanely formulated. As a traditionally trained naturopath, would you start someone on one of those remedies?
It would depend. Usually I do not, because I like to have more of a single remedy, and I like to understand more what exactly they're showing up in my office with, and not just on the physical complaint, but maybe some other issues that it's been underlying and it's been swept under the rug, so to speak, for a while. So the approach that I like to use is like peeling the onions one layer at a time until we get to the core. There are some things that the average person can use, like I mentioned, arnica. Mm-hmm. Arnica is probably in a lot of people's gym bags, mm-hmm. because it's a non-product. You can get it easily. Usually if you get in a low potency, like a 30 or something, it's not going to really hurt. You overwork, or you played football with your buddies and now you feeling the aches and pains. Well, arnica will work, and you're probably not going to have any ill effect from it. But when it starts getting into more of a higher potency or combination, then you want to be more careful. And there are, the Natural Homeopathic Center is a good organization just to look and see it. What are some of these remedies? What do they do? How they are formulated? What they're working for? Because each remedy addresses more than one thing. We cannot always assume that anytime that you have a muscle pain, you're going to go to arnica. Mm-hmm. Because there will probably be wrong assumptions. If the muscle pain is due because you overworked your muscles, yeah, that's great. But if there is something else going on inside your system, some other inflammation, some other issues going on. Maybe we need to look a little bit deeper to see what is the root cause of it. And again, it's like peeling the onions, and you get to the bottom of it. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that. And we're trying to educate folks on how to navigate these different fields. And when I'm teaching herbology, I have a rating system that I use to kind of classify and decipher what herbs are safe. You know, you mentioned arnica being pretty innocuous and anybody can use that pretty safely. The system that I use is a red, yellow, silver, gold system, right? And so gold is the gold standard. Anybody can use it. You don't need a lot of supervision on that. And then of course red is something that you absolutely have to have supervision for. Do you have something similar to that rating system for homeopathics?
I think perhaps the best way to address that is rather than having, what's safe or what's not safe as a golden system, as you mentioned for herbology, is I mentioned before about the organon and the materia medica. Those are sort of like the Bible that we refer to when we're talking about homeopathic remedies.
I mean, quite literally.
Yeah, quite literally, the Bible of homeopathic remedies.
Yeah. Okay, so can you give us some examples? What might be good remedies and at what potency for folks to have in their home kind of first aid kit?
So in the first aid kit, I would do something not higher than a 30, 30C and 30X. And for the folks out there that are not familiar with those C and X and number, it's a very easy system once you understand. So the C stands for the Roman numeral of centesimo, and the X stands for the Roman numeral of decimal, which means what? Which means that potency, it's a 1 to 10 for the decimal or 1 to 100 for the centesimal. 1 part of the mother tinctures and 9 parts of your dilutions or your lactose substance that we get together and triturated and potentize. And the number prior to it, you usually see something like a 6 or 12 or 30 or 200. That's how many times that process has been repeated. So when you see a 30X, which is usually what I would recommend people to have in their kit, either 30X or 30C, that process of trituration has happened 30 times. In the 12, of course, 12 times. So that's a rule of thumb. And I will go with something like 12 or 30 to have it in your purse or in your gym bag or in your first aid kit at home.
So I'm going to kind of segue a little bit here because you are involved in this really incredible project here in Ohio surrounding addiction recovery. Tell us all about that.
Well, that's another one of those subjects that I could probably speak for a couple hours. So I'll make that too a little shorter. It is a project that I started in downtown Youngstown over 10 years ago with a nonprofit organization by the name of Flying High Incorporated. And what we do, we try to provide a welcoming center for anyone who is recovering in addiction or not necessarily in recovery but wants to further their education, wants to look for a job. But then particularly if you are in recovery, then what we're trying to do is we will support with peer group, we will support with different therapy, whether it being, of course, the diet, because that's always one of the main things that we as naturopath do. We really stress the importance of let the food be the medicine. And we always see that anyone who has just got out of recovery, during the time that they were using whatever substance they were using, diet was not on the top of the list.
Right.
They were probably busier to trying to get their next high than trying to go to an organic store and try to get some wild-caught fish or free-range chicken and eat right. So you can imagine how deficient they become in his vitamins, in his minerals, all the nutrients have been pulled out. And then along with that, they are getting high on different substances, so it really is taking a toll on the body, the mind, the spirit, and this center kind of puts it all together, and we help people stay on the course and try to better themselves to the point where they can go back in the community and give back. In essence, that's what the center is all about.
That's really awesome. I didn't realize that you were working with folks who had already come out of addiction. I thought it was all active addiction. So that's really cool that there's also aftercare.
Right.
Okay, this is absolutely fascinating. Unfortunately, we have to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, but when we come back, we're going to continue chatting about this addiction recovery program that you're working on. So refill your cups, guys, and meet us back here in the parlor. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Tea Time with Dr. Danni, conversations for navigating holistic medicine and wellness. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Today's episode is sponsored by the upcoming Collaborative Care Retreat hosted by Dr. Harriet Lemberger-Schor and myself on August 17th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 755 Boardman, Canfield Road, Suite C2, bottom floor. The classroom, in collaboration with Dr. Harriet Lemberger-Schor, is proud to present Introduction to Collaborative Medicine. This retreat coincides with the kickoff of our 100-day challenge and will introduce you to the different aspects of collaborative care with breakout sessions on lifestyle medicine and vision setting, naturopathic medicine and nutrition, emotional healing and rebalance, and the transcendence therapy, followed by activities and a cooking demo. A light breakfast will be provided, as well as lunch following the cooking demonstration. The 100-day challenge will kick off that day as well. During the challenge, Dr. Danni and Dr. Schor will coach you through jump-starting the next phase of your wellness journey with 30 days of cleansing, 30 days of building, 30 days of healing, and 10 days of maintenance with one-on-one support and group challenges packed full of tips and tools to support your success. The cost for this retreat is just $65. Registration is now open, but seating is limited. Registration closes on August 12th, so call 330-758-9567 or text COLLAB to 234-308-8289 or go to www.drdanninaturopath.com/COLLAB retreat to reserve your spot today. You can save $50 when you register for the retreat and the challenge by June 28th. Are you in or near the Youngstown, Ohio area? Do you want to learn more about herbal medicine and how to make them? Then check out Dr. Danni's Deep Dive Herbology series in 2025. Deep Dive Stevia takes place on July 17th and 24th, 2025 at the classroom located at 755 Boardman, Canfield Road, Suite C2, bottom floor. This 2-day immersive class dives deep into the uses, properties, and ways to prepare every part of this multifunctional plant. You'll learn the benefits of each part of stevia, receive hands-on activities for you to do at home, enjoy interactive classroom activities, and receive recipes and activities to continue exploring the wonders of the stevia plant. Just $90 covers both days and class supplies. Registration ends July 11th, 2025, so call today to reserve your spot. Call 330-758-9567 or text STEVIA to 234-308-8289 or check the show notes for registration information. For up-to-date workshop and appearance information, go to www.drdanninaturopath.com/events. Do you want to get out of the rut of what feels like a never-ending cycle of poor health and mental and emotional drain? Check out the Metamorphosis book series by Dr. Danielle McDuff, board-certified naturopathic doctor. This 3-part book series will take you through a transformational process to complete healing, helping you understand why you feel stuck in those cycles, help you develop habits and practices that support healing and growth, and to discover and maintain the tools needed to continually live in this new best version of you. The series walks you through discovery and healing on a mind, body, spirit level, guides you into growth and abundance, and finally helps you discover purpose and rebuild resilience. Book 1, Whole Again, dives into whole healing by focusing on discovery and discussing tools for achieving that healing. Whole Again is currently available at www.drdannynaturopath.com/shop. You're listening to Tea Time with Dr. Danni. This show was previously recorded. You can reach the show at drdanninaturopath@gmail.com. That's DRDANNI naturopath@gmail.com, or find the link in the show notes below. Now back to Tea Time. Here's Dr. Danni.
Welcome back, Tea Timers. I have topped off my cup of brew. I hope you have too. Before the break, Dr. Sal and I were discussing homeopathic formulations, and he introduced his work with addiction recovery. And Dr. Sal, this work that you're doing with addiction recovery is such an amazing project. And it's also a prime example of interdisciplinary collaboration, because it's not just you working in this. So talk to us a little bit, though, about what drew you to addiction recovery and how exactly did you get involved in the project?
I got involved probably about almost a dozen of years ago. And what sparked it out, there was this need. Okay, you start seeing that addiction is a major issue here in the States and in the world. And you start seeing that often there is trauma associated with it, there is malnutrition associated with it, there is all sorts of other physical and emotional problems that a lot of times don't get addressed just by one aspect. You know, you can work the steps and go through your recovery program and work with your sponsor, and that's awesome, and we do incorporate that. But again, taking the approach of the three-legged stool, where we need to address the mind, the body, the emotion, the spirit. That's where I really saw that there was a need for that. And during those time, I was really reading a couple of books about addictions and how to end addictions with vitamins and nutraceutical. And the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health by Christina Veselak was putting up a course in Utah, and it sparked my attention. So I went out there, took the course, loved what I saw it, ended up following it up with other courses and get a certification just for nutrition specific for the addiction recovery. Because again, their needs are different than our needs when it comes to nutrition because of what they put their bodies through.
Right.
And at the same time, when I was searching, we came across, I came across particularly the amino acid therapy chart that Julia Ross basically designed many, many years ago. And for those of you that are not familiar, she's an author and has her own clinic in the Bay Area in California, and has been doing this for 30, 40 years. So this is a program that has been scientifically researched, proven. We have seen the results, and we also have seen the results that when you do apply all the proper tools, as we mentioned, for the mind, the body, the emotion, the percentage rate of recovery jump up to 83 to 90% instead of 30% if you just do a detox and then the person goes back on the street. And for those of you that have seen or are familiar with addiction or have a loved one that has been a victim of addiction, you have seen this roller coaster where they'll might be doing good for a while, they'll get detox, or they'll go to jail and they're forced into a detox, and then once they're out and they're back on the street, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you keep getting the same results. So something is going to have to change in the formula, and that was where sparked my attention. And once I saw that these tools were available, these special certifications were available to learn more, I felt the need really to start getting deep into the subject and see how we can help. Because it really takes a whole community to do this, and it takes more than one person, one modality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that because, so this is a particular thing around addiction that I have for years said, hey, we need to start looking at this part of it. What is causing this person to need to numb or to try to escape what's going on in their life? Because that's where addiction comes in.
You're right.
There are some outliers where, I got addicted to opioids because I needed the pain medication after an accident. There are some of those outliers, but for the majority of cases, it is so much about the internal stuff that's going on and those wounds that need to be healed. And the substances have become the coping mechanism that person has turned to help them deal with whatever kind of pain that is creating. So this is really addressing not just let's get you off the whatever substance you're addicted to and get you clean, but it's also addressing all of the underlying stuff that leads that person to that substance and ultimately leads to addiction.
You are absolutely right. You hit the nail right on the head, because it is really complex when you look at it, because we have to take a look at the neurotransmitters. What is this person deficient of? And again, if you don't have the proper diet and you are not feeding the brain what it really needs, then you're going to start having depressions in levels of serotonin or dopamine. And of course, you're going to find some substance that will bring those levels back up, whether it's alcohol or meth or crack cocaine. Because nobody wants to get up in the morning and feel bad. We all want to show up good. We all want to feel good. We all want to be happy. And if we don't have what it takes for our brain chemistry to feel that, we're going to be looking for something that it's going to do that for us.
Yeah, and whether that be some kind of substance or, for some people it is
shopping.
Yeah. Right, porn addiction.
Yeah.
Again, like any addiction,
sure.
This comes into play. And I love how this takes into account not only the physiological needs of the person, right? So, we can go in and we can do all this stuff with nutrition and, okay, we're doing really great with this. But if the emotional side of that is not addressed, and particularly for folks who have gone through traumas and this is how they're dealing with that pain, then we are completely missing the mark, because that wound doesn't heal. And at some point, something is going to trigger them and they're going to relapse.
Absolutely. And you see this over and over again.
Yeah.
And becomes a merry-go-round. And other people where they've gone through the same cycle 3, 4, 5, 7 times. And again, you have to address all 3 of them. You have to change something in the formula. Otherwise, the results will stay the same.
Yeah. There is a level of personal responsibility that comes with this kind of healing.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about how you support folks in the program on that aspect of it. I think that's probably the hardest part. I'm going off on a little tangent here, but so my mother was an addict. This is not a secret. It's, I talk about it pretty openly. And while she kicked the substance habits, her addictive behavior continued her entire life. And so, the challenge here is that once we get people clean, sometimes they just kind of well, you're not doing anything destructive. So go ahead, replace that with whatever vice you want, as long as it's not one of these. And I think that, that comes from that emotional side of that. So talk to me about how this program supports people with that kind of healing.
I will tell you that this program is probably one of the most fascinating program and very unique program, because again, they take everybody in, doesn't matter age group, whatever. We welcome everybody, and we give them the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to get better. We also have a couple sobriety homes that if they need a house to stay, and if they pass the requirement, they can stay at one of the sobriety houses that Flying High owns and is out there available for the clients. So there is peer support, peer-to-peer support, there is aftercare, there is counseling, there is clinical supervision, there is a medical doctor who's a prescriber in case you need to have some prescription medications, because we cannot assume that suddenly we're going to get off all the drugs and other prescriptions, that are still needed for you to function. And then, of course, there is the aspect where the nutrition comes in, the amino acid comes in, and we incorporate, things like prayers, meditation. We even had a yoga instructor until recently that was doing yoga once a week or twice a week just to get people moving. And it's more than movement, because if you know anything about yoga, it's not about just moving your body, but it's the union of your breath, your mind, your soul, your body, and all those things really play an effect on good health, on your wellness of the person.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that actually took us right through my question on the other kinds of providers that you are collaborating with, and that's a great team.
Yes.
It really seems like you kind of have a lot of the bases covered. So that's fantastic. And I love that team has come together. It's so common in our field, in all of the healing fields. Like,
Sure.
we kind of get territorial. And it's so common for us to view each other as competition. And it's just an amazing thing to see a group of interdisciplinary practitioners, the people coming from different backgrounds, pooling their resources and looking at this to say, how do we make people's lives better? So.
Absolutely. And it really takes a team effort. That old cliche that it takes a village.
Yeah.
Well, this is so true, because I'm part of this village, and I'm very fortunate and blessed to be part of this, because I see the results when the whole team collaborates and everybody works together. And that's the only way you're really going to get ahead.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Imagine what we could accomplish if we applied that same thought process
Oh, God.
to cancer.
Yeah,
to
anything.
To anything. It's awesome. I love the work that you're doing there.
Thank you.
So if someone's interested in getting involved in this recovery program, whether it be, for recovery for themselves or a family member, a friend, colleague, or maybe even just to get involved, do you guys take volunteers to come in and work?
We would love volunteers to come in and work. I mean, we always welcome everybody volunteering, but we always welcome anyone that is in early stage of recovery or needs help, or the Welcoming Center is just that. It welcomes everybody. We have the main center. It's in downtown Youngstown on Federal Plaza. Just last week, we had a ribbon cutting ceremony in Salem, and we have another Welcoming Center in downtown Warren. So we really are trying to spread the word out that these people are not alone. If you need help, even getting your driver's license back or getting some train, we have a welding school, a carpentry school, STNA school, a CDC school, so people can come in and learn a trade, become marketable again, and again, go back on the street and give back to the community, make them functional again and produce what they really were meant to do in their life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. So someone who's interested in getting into this, I want to make sure that we give all of the contact information to this. So I'm going to have you share that with us later on in the show, and then we will make sure that we get that in the show notes as well, so people can get in touch. Now, this work it's based on the study you alluded to earlier by Julia Ross, regarding managing addiction with holistic care. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So talk to us about that, and what are you guys discovering through this work? What are some lessons that you have learned specifically in the process of doing this?
Well, some of the major lessons that I've learned, that if you were to ask me 30 years ago about addiction, like many people, we have misconception. We would think that it's lack of will. We hear this often. Well, if you want to quit smoking, you can just go ahead and do it. You don't have the willpower to do it. Well, it's more than willpower. It's more because the major lesson that I learned and that I follow from the Alliance of Addiction Solution, which is basically the organization that Julia Ross, as well as Christina Vasilek, Carolyn Rubin, Petty Race started many years ago, and others. Those were like the funding fathers, and then as well as the Academy, which is run by Christina Veslak, which is the educational arm, where you can actually learn not only for yourself, but maybe if you are a family member of a victim of addiction for a loved one, you can learn more about some of these tools that will help your loved one, or you help yourself, or if you wanted to practice for and put it into a practice for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned about misconceptions about addiction, and that those were some of the things that you've kind of changed your mind at this point, and about the willpower. Is there anything else around that you would say, before you got into this project, I had this opinion, and now?
Well, I had several of those aha moments. In fact, I just came back from a addiction recovery conference last week in Columbus. And some of these aha moments are when we are not feeding the brain the proper nutrients, the role that the omega fatty acids play on the recovery, the role of the amino acid and the cofactor like vitamin C, like zinc, like copper, all those things that are essential in recovery. All those things are really the missing pieces of the puzzle that often go unlooked when we are trying to help someone in recovery.
Yeah.
The other thing that is really, or was an aha moment many years ago, was study shows that people that relapse most likely have skipped a meal full of protein in the past 48 hours. So if there is anything that anyone takes away from this particular segment of your podcast, is eat more good protein at every meal.
Okay. And we want to make sure that people are keeping that balance too,
right.
All of we can't go on the carnivore diet and expect that to
no.
like solve all the problems. But I do think that, we are in a society where we eat so much refined sugar and so much starchy foods that we miss out on the need for proteins and then of course, good, clean, healthy veggies. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
It's interesting what you're saying, and I'm really going to have to kind of step back and think about my approach to addiction. Again, I've had this experience with my mom, and some of the things that I've noticed, for me, addiction is the only disease out there where you decide when you're going to start it, and you also decide when you're going to end it. I understand it's very nuanced, but
Sure.
At the very core of that, we make the decision that we are going to start using something, and maybe it's just recreational when we start. I don't believe anybody wakes up and goes, you know what, I'm going to go get myself addicted and ruin my life, right? I don't believe
Exactly.
I don't believe anyone does that.
Right.
But I do think that we make the decision to use the coping mechanisms that we use, and at some point, in order for us to get clean, again, that level of personal responsibility, we have to decide that we want to, and then we have to take action on that decision. And so in that respect, addiction is really the only disease where we have like complete control over the start and end of it.
Absolutely right. And that's one of the points that I always stress out to everybody is you are in control. At the same time, when we talk about diet, you make the decision of what do you want to put in your mouth. You want to go through a fast food and get ultra processed food, or you want to have some clean veggies, some grilled chicken today, and make a good diet. You're in control of that. And I understand that sometimes there are financial issues associated with that, and there is also the instant gratification rather than going to the store and picking up food and clean it and cooking. I'm hungry now, I'm just going to go to a drive-through. And at the end, you're really doing more damage to your body, as we know, because diet, food is a medicine part and is a healing part of our body, of our mind, of everything that we do. So we can't take those things out of the equation. And at the same time, because of this efficiency that we have caused while we were using, now we're looking at amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein, to really help us support those neurotransmitters.
Right.
To replenish the dopamine, the serotonin, the GABA, the catecholamines, things that we have either run out of it or killed, or having those substance replacing what our brain was naturally making at one time.
Exactly. And it's not just about the protein production, but it's also like those amino acids are so vital in producing those chemicals within the body.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And often they go underlooked.
Yeah, this was something that I discovered when I was looking into food sensitivities, is that, a lot of the anaphylactic reactions are a conversion or a lack of conversion or an inappropriate conversion of histidine to histamine.
Right.
And we can kind of trace that to that enzymatic action, but then that gets driven by what else is out of balance in the body. And do you have these amino acids? Do you have these particular vitamins that then work in conjunction with those amino acids? It's such a complex subject. I could go down a huge rabbit hole, but we don't have time for that today.
We'd be spending the next 4 hours here just on this subject.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Maybe we'll come back and talk about that.
I'll be glad to. Thank you.
All right, we do have to take another break, but before we do, we have arrived at the uncomfortable truth segment of our show, the part of the show where we share truths that might be hard to hear, might even make you a little uncomfortable, but hopefully encourage your creative problem-solving juices to get flowing and empower you as you continue on your personal wellness journey. Addiction, as I said, is the only disease that you have the ability to control. No one wakes up and decides to get addicted to a substance. However, we do make the choice to begin using the substances or engaging in addictive behavior at the onset. We also make the choice to take action to beat that addiction or to quit. While the cravings are real and not always a conscious choice, the decision to get sober and beat the addiction is fully in your hands. Reach out for help where you need to and do the work to heal. And with that, we do have to take one final break. But when we come back, we're going to continue talking about homeopathy and collaborative care. And Dr. Sal will share some common conditions that benefit from homeopathy. So stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Tea Time with Dr. Danni, conversations for navigating holistic medicine and wellness. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Are you experiencing bloat, constipation, digestive sensitivities to certain foods, or irritable bowel symptoms? Are you looking for a natural approach to healing? Dr. Danni can help. As a board-certified naturopathic doctor, her client-centered approach will help you discover the underlying contributors to your symptoms, learn how to better support your body, and provide you with resources to help you speed your healing. Schedule an assessment or ask for the free 10-minute Can You Help Me consult to find out how Dr. Danni can help you today. Call 330-758-9567 or go to www.musslerchiro.com to schedule today. Are you in or near the Youngstown, Ohio area? Do you want to learn more about herbal medicine and how to make them? Then check out Dr. Danni's Deep Dive Herbology series in 2025. Deep Dive Stevia takes place on July 17th and 24th, 2025 at the classroom located at 755 Boardman, Canfield Road, Suite C2, bottom floor. This 2-day immersive class dives deep into the uses, properties, and ways to prepare every part of this multifunctional plant. You'll learn the benefits of each part of stevia, receive hands-on activities for you to do at home, enjoy interactive classroom activities, and receive recipes and activities to continue exploring the wonders of the stevia plant. Just $90 covers both days and class supplies. Registration ends July 11th, 2025, so call today to reserve your spot. Call 330-758-9567 or text stevia to 234-308-8289 or check the show notes for registration information. For up-to-date workshop and appearance information, go to www.drdanninaturopath.com/events. You're listening to Tea Time with Dr. Danni. This show was previously recorded. You can reach the show at drdanninaturopath@gmail.com. That's DRDANNI naturopath@gmail.com, or find the link in the show notes below. Now back to Tea Time. Here's Dr. Danni.
Welcome back, Tea Timers. Before the break, Dr. Zal and I were talking about his work in addiction recovery and getting into a little bit of detail on exactly how that addiction recovery works. Dr. Sal, this work that you're doing in addiction recovery is really amazing. I mean, groundbreaking work. What are some of the remedies that you guys are using for alcohol and narcotic withdrawal in particular? And how do you use them?
Another great question. Thank you for asking me, because now we're going back to my favorite subject again. Of course, keeping in mind, as I mentioned before, we need to have the full approach. So we need to look at the diet first. We need to look at making sure they're drinking enough water. They're off of those crazy energy drinks and soda pop and whatever you. But the remedies that are great and have been used for quite a while, and you can find these even in the materia medica. Of course, the old materia medica probably would not have addressed, crack and meth, because 200-300 years ago, those substances weren't even available. But things like alcohol and narcotics, Nux vomica, for example, most people have heard of it. For those of you that have not, it's a remedy that it's made up from the dry seed of the strychnine seed. So it is a poisonous plant or seed, basically, but when it's highly triturated in an homeopathic fashion, then it becomes safe. And that's used quite a bit for people that are trying to recover from alcohol, from narcotics. So it's a great remedy for chemical dependency. That is one that it's used quite a bit. And in fact, you don't even have to be in recovery. If you drank too much at the social party, you can just take 3 pellets of Nux vomica. Or if you overate, you can take a couple pellets of Nux vomica. Another one that it's widely used is sulfur. You all know that sulfur is a chemical element we find in nature. This is great for work with alcoholism, especially when we start seeing liver issues, cirrhosis of the liver. Sulfur will help as a catalyst healing those particular organs. Avena sativa is another one of those great remedy that is made from the oat. So avena is the Avena sativa plant, is from the green leaves of the oat plant, and it helps detoxify the body, calms the nervous system. This is also great with people that are trying to recover from cocaine, heroin, opium, morphine, marijuana, antidepressant. It's a great one for that. The chamomile, it's another good remedy for narcotic withdrawals, because they usually get into the period where the withdrawals are pretty significant, and you can use it as a tea. As we all know that we probably have used chamomile tea, but even as an homeopathic remedy in pellets.
Great. That's a good little starter kit there.
Yeah.
So what are some other common conditions that benefit from homeopathic care?
Common conditions that we usually see, and not only with addiction, people that are trying to get better in recovery, but even seems like this is becoming another epidemic, is insomnia. Many times we have people that can't sleep well, or they have a problem falling asleep, or they fell asleep and then they'll wake up 2-3 o'clock in the morning and can't fall asleep again, or don't feel refreshed in the morning. And there is a handful of remedies that you might find very helpful if you do suffer from different type of insomnia. One of them is the aconite or aconitum. So this is the remedy that we will use most of the time when people have a fear of falling asleep. Okay. Children sometimes are the primary user, take great benefit from it, because they might be afraid of the dark, afraid of falling asleep. And that's, aconitum is a good one to look into it and maybe put it in your kit.
That's one of the ABCs of child homeopathy, right?
Exactly.
Aconite, chamomile, and belladonna.
Belladonna, exactly. That's good. Yeah, good memory from the old days of studying the ABC of homeopathy.
Yeah. I did retain some of it.
And also things like arsenicum alba, which is really white arsenic, and it's made from white arsenic. So I don't want people to think that they're going to get white arsenic and they're going to go ahead and poison themselves with it. But that's a good remedy for the insomnia where people struggle, especially after midnight, about 1 o'clock in the morning. They tend to wake up and they can't fall asleep again, and they have this excessive thirst, so they have to get some water. Otherwise, the mind really doesn't relax them to go to sleep. What's another one that it's good and it's used a lot? Cocculus. Cocculus is one of those remedies where they may feel foggy, a bit dizzy, especially getting up in the morning, not well refreshed. They're probably sleep deprived from the insomnia, of course. And often these people that need cocculus are people that are caregiver. They worry so much about somebody else that they don't fall asleep.
Right.
Just to give you an idea of some of these remedy that they will help with insomnia. The Nux vomica, as I mentioned before, for the alcoholism is also great for insomnia. People that will usually tend to wake up 3-4 o'clock in the morning and have a hard time falling asleep again. These are the worry people, the people that are 3 o'clock in the morning that try to solve all the problems and they have their monkey mind going all over. Take a look at Nux vomica and maybe take a couple of those pellets and see if they can quiet down the irritable state of mind and help you fall asleep, just to give you a few remedies there.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So you mentioned also, along with insomnia, that anxiety is one of those things that you see pretty often in your practice. So talk to me about how you approach that.
Great. That's a good question. And you're probably going to see some of those remedies that I just mentioned for insomnia being repeated again for anxiety. No surprise, probably.
They kind of go hand in hand.
They kind of go hand in hand, exactly. And the first one that comes to mind, again, is the aconitum or the aconite. You remember a few seconds ago I had mentioned that the insomnia for the aconite is the fear of falling asleep. Well, the anxiety associated with aconite is fear of death. So we usually see these people that have an extreme fear that maybe if they fall asleep, they're not going to wake up or they're going to die. So aconite is a great one for fears. The arsenicum album, again, the white arsenic made out remedy from it. It's great for the restless type of anxiety. These people cannot find any break, any rest. They're constantly moving like crazy. So that's also where often feeds a feeling of despair, because you can't find rest, you can't settle down into anything. So now you start to despair. But anything else in the world there. Argentum nitricum, that is the anxiety that usually people have filled with apprehensions, fears. There is a great mental impulses that also goes hand in hand with addiction, as you can imagine, with the impulse and the impulse brain. Gelsenium is a great remedy for the anxiety that is often caused by going to a job interview, or we call that the stage fright type of anxiety. You start getting the trembling of the hands or the voice, and you can feel that these people are getting very, very anxious. The good thing for that is to look for is gelsenium. So that's just a few of the remedy that we can have our listener look into it.
Fantastic. That is great info. So this series, as you know, is all about who do you need on your health and wellness team and how to build that team. So what is your approach to interdisciplinary collaboration in your practice, and how exactly do you apply that with your clients?
So my approach is that I like to see a true integrated approach. I don't think any one of us has a solution for everything. So as I mentioned before with the addiction, what really makes us successful as a team is to be able to collaborate, put our brains together, and each one brings something to the table, and we really feel the needs of our clients and of the people that are there that are in need.
Thank you so much for that. We unfortunately are almost out of time already. So Already, yeah. If you were to leave our listeners with one thought, inspirational, educational, empowering, etc., what would that be?
Wow. One thought only?
Just one.
It's going to be tough for me to choose, but let's see.
We have a little bit of time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One thought that comes to mind is always listen to your inner voice. Most often we hear a gut feeling tells us something and we disregard that. And I know personally, any time that I went against that, I prove it to be wrong, and I should listen to my gut feeling. The other thought, because I know you just asked for one, but you get a bonus thought here.
Absolutely.
The other thought is that really we are more powerful when we educate ourselves and we empower ourselves. So there is a lot of great practitioners doing great things out there. Look for them, educate yourself, collect all the tools and all the information that you can, because that's how you can come up and make a better decision for your health and for your loved ones.
Perfect. So how do our listeners get in touch with you?
Well, let's see. My website is www.naturale, and it's naturale-solutions, as in plural.com. My phone number is 330-719-0598. And I'm on Facebook as Salvatore Di Liello, so on Instagram, on LinkedIn. A few of these social media out there. If you just Google my name, you're probably going to see me in one of those social media.
Perfect. And as ever, we will have that contact information in the show notes. Dr. Sal, it is always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your expertise and your vision and this amazing project that you're involved in. It's been a wonderful hour.
Thank you, Dr. Danni, for having me here. It's a privilege, and I always enjoy spending time with you and sharing ideas. So I really appreciate you having me back, and I appreciate people for listening to this podcast. Thank you.
All right, my lovelies, we have made it to the moment of clarity part of the show, where I share thoughts designed to inspire you to think critically and empower you to take action. The most empowering act is that of taking control of your health and wellness, especially when it comes to beating addiction. The tools and resources are available and out there. Seek them out, take control of your journey, and do it better going forward.
Today's episode is sponsored by the upcoming Collaborative Care Retreat hosted by Dr. Harriet Lemberger-Schor and myself on August 17th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 755 Boardman, Canfield Road, Suite C2, bottom floor. The classroom, in collaboration with Dr. Harriet Lemberger-Schor, is proud to present Introduction to Collaborative Medicine. This retreat coincides with the kickoff of our 100-day challenge and will introduce you to the different aspects of collaborative care with breakout sessions on lifestyle medicine and vision setting, naturopathic medicine and nutrition, emotional healing and rebalance, and the transcendence therapy, followed by activities and a cooking demo. A light breakfast will be provided, as well as lunch following the cooking demonstration. The 100-day challenge will kick off that day as well. During the challenge, Dr. Danni and Dr. Schor will coach you through jump-starting the next phase of your wellness journey with 30 days of cleansing, 30 days of building, 30 days of healing, and 10 days of maintenance with one-on-one support and group challenges packed full of tips and tools to support your success. The cost for this retreat is just $65. Registration is now open. but seating is limited. Registration closes on August 12th, so call 330-758-9567 or text COLLAB to 234-308-8289 or go to www.drdanninaturpath.com/collab retreat to reserve your spot today. You can save $50 when you register for the retreat and the challenge by June 28th.
That's it for today's show. Please join us back here in the parlor in 2 weeks for our next episode, where we will discuss what a holistic practitioner does and how they fit into your team with our guest, certified holistic health practitioner, Carrie Pyatt. Carrie and I attended the same school, so we're going to talk about the differences in training for each of us and what to look for in a school if you're interested in getting into the field. Carrie will also share a project that she's been working on centered on empowering women. So meet us back here in the parlor.
You can get more information on me, Dr. Danielle McDuff, at www.drdanninaturpath.com, including upcoming workshops and speaking dates on the Education tab. You can also purchase swag and books at the website at www.drdanninaturpath.com/shop. Go to www.musslerchiropractic.com to book an appointment with me or any of our providers, or call 330-758-9567. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under the handle at Phoenix Dr. Danni. That's PhoenixDrDanni. And join the Tea Time Facebook group at Tea Time with Dr. Danni on Facebook, or check the show notes for all the links and contact information. That's my time for today. Until next time, my lovelies, remember, be kind to each other and be kind to yourselves. Thanks for joining me on Tea Time with Dr. Danni, conversations for navigating holistic medicine and wellness. The show drops every other Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us in the parlor for another episode of Tea Time with Dr. Danni in 2 weeks. And don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to be the first to know when a new episode is available. The information and views expressed in this show are from a naturopathic viewpoint, and the content is educational information regarding the topic discussed. The underlying cause of any condition for any person may have some overlap with the information provided in this show, but will always be more nuanced than any bit of general information and require you to dig deeper with your team to discover the full cause for you as an individual. The information in this show is not intended to diagnose or treat any ailments.